takes her grip. I'm in Dublin. She's on a business trip, but she sends me postcards every now and then. Yeah, she sends me postcards. While she was learning French in Belgium, I was learning fast. Not a ghost of a chance. We never had.
I want to introduce three young lads all the way from Ringsend. They don't believe in travelling very far for the gigs, you see. Two brothers and a pal, out of school, 18 months ago, formed the group. They signed an international recording contract a year ago, and they're due to make their first album in a very short time. And meanwhile, they've released their first single. And I am reliably informed that amongst the youngsters all over the country, they've built up in 18 months a fierce following altogether. Let's have a welcome, please, for The Blades.
Dublin, late 1970s. In a city buzzing with new sounds and a fierce spirit, one band rose to speak for a generation. Their sound was as sharp as their name. This was The Blades. The world didn't change in 1976, but the musical landscape most certainly did. Punk rock exploded, shaking the cultural fabric and inspiring countless young people to pick up instruments and make their voices heard. Here in Ireland, and particularly in Dublin, this new wave of music ignited a spark. Young bands sprang up with one thing in common, a fierce determination to be heard. Away with the old and in with the new. Ringsend was a place where hard work and resilience defined the people. A close-knit community with a strong sense of identity and tradition was not left behind in this movement. But it was also a place where breaking the mould wasn't always easy. Yet 6 local lads, Paul Cleary, Lar Cleary, Pat Larkin, Joe Donnelly, Johnny Burke and Liam Fagan, decided to do just that. They formed a band that would not only challenge the norms, but put Ringsend on the map in the Irish music scene. To truly understand the significance of what they did, we have to remember Ireland's reality in the late 1970s. Economically and socially, the country was in dire straits, with record levels of unemployment and limited opportunities for young people. So for 6 young lads to form a band in this environment was a bold move. It wasn't easy to be different in Ringsend back then. To dress differently, to act differently, or to sing differently often invited ridicule or pushback from peers. But these lads embraced their individuality and pushed forward. In 1977, their persistence paid off. They landed their first gig, and it happened right here, in this very hall, the Catholic Young Men's Society, or CYMS Hall. That teenage disco was the setting for the Blades' debut performance. It was a modest start, a short set of covers played by a 6-piece lineup determined to make their mark. What none of them could have imagined that night was that they were lighting a fuse, one that still burns brightly to this day.
I just figured out it's 44 years since I met the Blades. It was 1980 in a pub in Ringsend, and I had gone to interview the band. It's kind of their first, I suppose, big interview in Hot Press, and we already thought they were a great band in Hot Press. I remember, I think it was Carl Sigdinis was the first person to come in talking about the Blades. He had heard the demo or the sort of recording of Hot For You, and he just thought it was one of the greatest things he'd ever heard, and we, the rest of us, heard it and agreed completely. The Blades really became quite big locally. The famous stuff was, you know, the gigs in the Magnet on Saturday night, which were just fantastic, and this weird thing in the Bagot Inn where every week they had this residency with U2 and alternating the headlining act each week, so that, you know, U2 would be supporting the Blades one week and the Blades would be supporting U2 the next week. You know, it is no exaggeration to say that a lot of us at the time were pretty sure that, like, the Blades were were the band. Do you know what I mean? And they were, and many of us would still have that opinion. You know, it is a great thing that, you know, after all this time, there's this recognition, and I think it's so well deserved.
I really can't believe that it's 45 years since the Blades first walked into the offices of Hot Press magazine with their then brand new first demo tape. I was on the demo desk at that time, which meant that for that fortnight I had to listen to any demos that came into the offices and give them a write-up in the magazine. Within a few seconds of putting on that Blades demo, I fell in love with the band. The first song on that demo tape was, of course, Hot For You. I was so excited by them that I designed a poster for them, the original Cut a Rug with the Blades poster, and then their logo, which became their identifying trademark, and I'm very proud to have done that. Everybody at the time, myself included, thought they were going to be huge, and I still to this day can't believe that they weren't. But I'm delighted that they've reached this great landmark in time, and happy that we're here to celebrate it. Well done, guys.
So my earliest memory of the Blades has to be when I was 15 and they were rehearsing for this special gig, and my best friend at the time, Mary, and I went over to look at them in St. Patrick's School in Thorncastle Street, and we were knocking and they were rehearsing, and they started to sing I Hear You Knocking But You Can't Come In. They actually tortured us, but we still followed them, we persevered. We wore them down, became their #1 fans. I don't really remember this gig here, but I was only 15 and I was very starstruck. But I do remember one of them wore blue cords. I wonder who that was. Anyway, great to have you all here this evening. Looking forward to seeing everybody. Well done.
What I remember of that gig back in 1977 was that, like, we were only 15 years old. And not only were we getting to see our first live gig, we were also getting to see the guys that we hung out with. So that made it doubly exciting. But what followed was even better, because after that, for a number of years after, we got to see so many gigs. Loved all the songs, from Down Market to The Bride Wore White to Muscle Men to, and my favourite, Not a Ghost of a Chance. So I think it's kind of cool now that after those decades have passed, that they're being memorialised in their hometown. So thanks for the memories and enjoy the night.
Tonight we're celebrating the very first Blades gig in the CY Hall in Ringsend. But while that kicked off the story of Dublin's greatest band of the era, it's this place here that the story became a legend. This unremarkable apartment block sits on the site of the Magnet, an important venue in Dublin's musical history. I first saw the Blades here in the summer of 1979, and they started making waves in a joint header series of gigs up in Bagot Street with a band called U2. Not sure what happened to them. I didn't pay them much attention, to be honest. But Lara, Pat and Paul stole my heart and made the Magnet their home. Here we came every Saturday night for what seemed like years, but sadly wasn't, singing Let's Go Down to the Dance as we giddily strolled up Pearse Street. Up the stairs past Frank the bouncer and inside to purchase a pint, dozens of which stood on the shelf behind the bar, pre-poured by Mr. Lynch. Then you'd hunt for a good seat near the stage. Not that you didn't need it for very long, because as soon as the first chords of Breaking Out of the Rut rang out, you were up on the tiny dance floor. It soon became a sweatbox. The perfect songs were what grabbed us. I could probably take a good stab still at the lyrics of So, Stood Up Again, Walk Back Renee, Ask That Boy a Personal Question, and Change Your Mind. It really was a magical time and a magical band. The Magnet is long gone, becoming a ballad pub for a time before it was knocked down, become a spar, an apartment block. It's now a coffee shop. But it'll always be the Blades Magnet to me, and I always raise a smile and a happy memory whenever I pass it. Paul Cleary was an unsurpassed songwriter. But it's another Dubliner with the same initials, whose words I turn to when I try to remember those great days. Let's close our eyes and we'll pretend that it could somehow be the same again.
What can I say about the Blades? They gave me so many good nights. Those Friday nights in the Magnet, the excitement, McGonagall's, the Residency, and the Bag It In when they blew U2 off the stage. I remember going to see them in Chuck Furbo in Galway. I love the band, I love the music, and I'll always be indebted to the Blades for so many great nights. Thanks very much. Go, stop a chance. We never had.
Hello Blades fans. I stand on the corner every day, hoping to make a connection in front of the mirror before I go out, combing my hair to perfection. I got tired of her telling me what to do. I had to stay clean when I do someone new. So I thought that I was free. When will this be the reunion? I was wrong, but let's see the reunion. It's been so long, been so long. I talk to her sister whenever I can, trying to make a connection.
Hello, and welcome to the Magnet. Well, back in the day, the Magnet was our church. It's where we went for sustenance. It's where we went to hear an incredible band called The Blades regularly. They did super gigs. I remember one for charity in particular every year, Bring a Toy gig. Paul was always very proud to support the kids there in Temple Street. Saw some great bands in the day, None Attacks from Cork, Big Self from Northern Ireland, DC9, lots of different bands from Dublin. I well remember Liam Lynch with a big smile on his face pulling the pints upstairs, and they'd set up all the creamy pints as if it was a Dublin match that they were expecting the crowd in from. As I say, great days, lovely crew always with the Blades if you were there, Dave and Hugh and the rest of the gang. Always not just good guys but a good crew as well. So my abiding memory is a comment coming out of one of the Blades gigs in the Magnet where somebody said, you know, thinking of the Beatles in the cavern, that this was our cavern. So the Blades were to us what the Beatles were to the cavern in Liverpool. And I want to wish them luck with the rest of their career. They haven't done too badly so far. Keep it up, lads. Plain a stormer. Have a great night.
The first 5 singles by the Blades, between about whatever it was, I don't know what it was, that must have been about 78 to about 81 or something like that. Those first 5 singles by the Blades were the first 5 singles by any band I've ever heard in my entire life. They were absolutely brilliant.
In 1977, the first time I seen the Blades, as I say indirectly, they walked into the CYMS, the 6 lads carrying guitars, drums, you name it. We were playing snooker. I said, what the hell's going on here? I'd only get into music, like punk was out at the time, the Jam, the Clash, all those bands, and suddenly there was a band in Ringsend. I said, geez, so I stuck my head in the disco. Couldn't really see much, I could hear a bit of noise. To the day I died, I don't know what they played. But about a year, maybe a year and a half later, the Blade just came with a wallop, like it's just unbelievable. The Nights in the Magnet probably changed my life in regards to my whole outlook on life. I met a complete different circle of people that were into music, into life, and all to do. It all came from the Blades, and it's kind of ironic in a way. I tried to get out of Ringsend for years, and when I got out of Ringsend, who did I meet? A band from Ringsend. They introduced me to a whole different life. Just tremendous years. As I said, the Magnet nights, it felt like there was 10,000 people in the place, probably over 150. The floor was shaking. You come out afterwards in a sweat, and they were singing unbelievable songs, like just real songs that mattered. Incredible songs, and Paul Cleary, brilliant lyrics. He just seemed to know what was going on at the time in regards to the church and politics, the state and all that type of stuff. He had a message and he was getting it out there. A lot of love songs, but love songs with a bit of bite to them, you know. And just made me proud to be able to say, look, I'm from Ringsend, this band from Ringsend. All of a sudden I'd be in town meeting different people and say, oh, you're from Ringsend, the Blades, jeez, they're unbelievable, you know. And for me it was an honour, and it's still an honour until, like, I mean, this is what this night is about. we're celebrating a band from Ringsend that put Ringsend on the map musically, socially, and still put Ringsend on the map. Like, the Blades are still going strong, and it's great to see. Just delighted to be able to host this night. It means so much to me personally that you lads put Ringsend on the map, and this is our way as Ringsenders saying, well done, and have a great night tonight.
Hi, Adam Clayton here. Hello Paul and Pat. I'm sorry Lawrence isn't here to share in this celebration, and all the other members of Blades over the years that I may not have seen the band with those extra players in. But I have very, very good memories of those early days in 1978, 79. We played together. You had your vision of how a band should sound, coming from the south of the city, from Ringsend, and we had our idea of how a band should sound coming from the northern suburbs. And I think you guys were a little bit further ahead of us. You realized it had to be fun, it had to be upful, it had to be joyful, and you had this great pop soul sound. And Paul, you could play the bass. It was great to hear you, great to be at those shows, such energy. And I hear you being celebrated in Ringsend, and I think that's fantastic after all these years to be honoured like that, again, as I say, in your hometown. So thanks for the memories. I enjoyed those times of hanging around the city when we were both passionate about the only thing that we knew how to do, and that was to play music. And we're still that passionate. So thank you. Have a great day.
Though this was the only gig the original six-piece lineup ever played together, it marked the beginning of a remarkable journey. In the years that followed, the Blades would rise to prominence, sharing stages with bands like U2, Dr. Feelgood, and The Specials. Their music captured the spirit of the time, songs that told stories of Dublin life with its struggles and its resilience. Tonight, we honour that moment and the legacy it sparked. We celebrate Lar, Paul, Pat, Joe, Johnny and Liam, not just for their music, but for their courage to stand out, to push boundaries and to represent their community with pride. Ringsend couldn't be prouder of her sons, the Blades. From their first gig in this hall to their lasting influence on Irish music, they have shown us the power of music to challenge, inspire and endure. Thanks lads for the music, the memories and making us Ringsenders proud.